Okay. You can take a couple of deep breaths, filling up your lungs and stretching a little bit your body, making yourself really comfortable on your chair, or wherever you're sitting. And when you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting this invitation for me to share what I want to share about this topic today. So I'm going to just tell you briefly what the talk is going to be about. It's going to be a bit less than an hour. It's going to have different parts. First, I'm just going to share very briefly the common perspective of what viruses are, which most of you have heard many times. So I'm going to do it very briefly. And then I'm going to give different possibilities, different options, which are completely science-based, based on research of many doctors, microbiologists, virologists around the world that has been done in the last century, that can give you a very different perspective of what these little particles are. And why do I have this interest in sharing this with you and whomever is interested in listening to it? Because most of us grew up in a society that all the education is mainstream. And almost all the information we're receiving today is mainstream through social media, through the news, etc., which is based all in the common belief and the common explanation of what viruses are and what they do in the body, which this explanation is basically sustained by fear and by the concept that diseases come from the outside. So I'm going to just give you a different perspective, and then it's your choice what you want to integrate into your perception of the world, into your perception of microorganisms, the body, life, disease, etc. And then I'm going to give a little space to share a little bit. Once you understand these different perspectives, I'm going to share a few tips or things that I do in my life that help me stay in a balanced, healthy state, that are completely in tune with these different perspectives, which probably will make sense to you. And I hope that is support for you. And then I'm going to open a space for questions, for whatever questions you have, and I hope I can answer as much as I can. Okay, so I'm going to begin. I'm just admitting a few more people that are joining the chat. And okay, so I'm going to share with you a few slides to give you a little bit of this. Okay. All right. I'm just going to start straight with what we all commonly know what viruses are. What conventional allopathic medicine and most of the mainstream media and education tell us that viruses is that they are some pathogenic germs or microscopic particles that come from outside the body, and they create infections from the outside inside the body. This is one aspect of it. Sorry, I skipped it. Okay. The other is that once they enter our body, they enter the cells of our body, and they reproduce inside our cells, they multiply, they kill the cell, and they go and they invade other cells of the body. And that's how viruses make us sick. This is a common explanation of what viruses do in our body. Therefore, when we understand this, we need to protect ourselves, do all kinds of things in our life to protect ourselves from these external invaders to our body. And this is basically what sustains the medical system today, and also many other alternative therapy or alternative medicine perspectives, which are based on the same principle that viruses come from the outside, and their intention is to hurt my cells, reproduce, invade my body, and get me sick. That's why supposedly we need medications to kill them or vaccinations to prevent ourselves from getting sick from these viruses. The theory about how vaccines are supposed to prevent these viral diseases is that supposedly we're going to receive a small dose of this virus in our body will create an immune reaction to it. It's going to create antibodies that are going to then protect us from these viruses, and we're going to supposedly become immune. But this is proved in many different examples of different diseases, how even though we have antibodies to certain viruses, that doesn't mean that we don't get the symptoms of these diseases. Plus, most of vaccines don't assure us that we're going to get those diseases. But this is a different subject that we're going to see probably later, but it's not the main subject of this talk. So this is the conventional explanation of what viruses are. And I'm going to give you just very few details about these small particles, microscopical particles that are called viruses. They are basically capsules made of protein and fat that have inside a piece of DNA or RNA. This is a genetic material. All our cells have DNA, and many other microorganisms in the planet have DNA or RNA, which is just pieces of genetic material. So these particles, which are microscopic, they measure between 20 and 450 nanometers, which is like a billionth of a meter. And they are only visible in electronic microscope, which few places in the world and few hospitals have them. We cannot see them in normal microscope. So they are incredibly minute particles, much smaller than bacteria, fungus, and other microorganisms. It is said by the medical association and the scientific association in the world that these particles have no life of their own. They have no metabolism of their own. They don't grow, they don't breathe, they don't have a definite lifespan, they don't reproduce, and they don't change according to the external environment. So that's why they're not considered living beings. This is from the scientific conventional perspective. Without going into other realms, more esoteric, we're going to keep it just in this realm. So that's why they are not called microbes. Microbes, the word microbe comes from Greek mikrobios. Mikro is small, bios is life, so a small life particle. So they are not considered microbes. That's why also supposedly antibiotics and these medications don't kill them. This is a big debate also in conventional allopathic medicine, that they say that antivirals kill microbes, but most doctors know they don't really do that. And I will explain more of that later. Compared to antibiotics or antifungi medications, that it is proved that they do kill the bacteria or the fungi. Okay, now I just want to see a little bit here. How are you doing? Are you following me? Yes? Fantastic. Good. Okay, so this is just something very simple, very brief, that most of you most probably know, and I'm just going to show an image here of this, what I just explained you of what is a virus, and I'm going to do a little here. Okay. If you see in the center, this in here, I'm drawing around it, this is the genetic material inside. This here is the capsule, what I'm crossing over here. And this here are proteins that are supposed to be receptors that bind to cells in the body or other living beings or microorganisms. So the capsule is made of fat and protein, and the inside is genetic material. So it's just, 1 second. All right. There we go. So that's just an image of a simple virus. This perspective that we all grew up with, that we all received education, that we have all heard from doctors, is that viruses are these microbes that come from the outside. They are there to attack me, to get me sick, and some people might die from this. Now, what I'm going to explain to you right now, what I'm going to share is sorry. There it goes. Okay. What I'm going to share with you are 3 different perspectives, scientifical, that will give you a little bit a different view of what these particles are. And it might make sense to you, it might not. But then I'm going to open some space for you to ask questions. Okay? So, and here we go again. So the main question, and this is what might open up a whole new panorama for you, is that conventional allopathic medicine explains that these particles come from the outside and they are there to hurt me. Probably there's a different perspective, a different theory, that these microscopic particles might not come from the outside and have a different purpose in my body. So I'm going to give you just these details. The word virus comes from Latin, which originally means poison, okay? Which is very different from a microorganism. It's very from a microbe, okay? It means poison, the original word virus. As we see, these theories say that they come from the outside. These 3 new explanations I'm going to give you are completely different, that might explain how these particles don't come from the outside and are already in the body, which is something that is completely in tune with the medical science, because even if you ask medical doctors today, they will tell you that every person has almost all the existing bacteria, fungus, and virus in our body. We all have candida, we all have streptococcus, we all have herpes virus, HPV virus, hepatitis virus, coronavirus, influenza virus. We all have them in our body. So there are many things that don't make sense from what conventional allopathic medicine says, that these come from the outside, but they never explain why they get activated in the body, why suddenly these particles that are inside my body, why suddenly they make me sick. There is no explanation about that from conventional medicine. So I'm going to give you these different perspectives which might help you to understand. So the first one is that viruses are waste toxic material from inside the cells. These particles that have inside genetic material with this protein fat capsule around it are released from inside the cells, and they are kind of a detoxification process from the cells themselves. These first 2 explanations I'm going to give you go hand in hand, because these are big question marks that many scientists are working on today. The first one is that they are toxic material from the cells that is excreted and is released into the interstitial space, which is the space in between cells, and it is cleansed from the body or from the living being that they are in. The other one is that they are these same particles that are excreted, taken out of the cell, but they are messengers to the cells around or to other living beings around. This means that the cells themselves create these particles, they release them from inside for a specific purpose. Now, this is some of you might already be watching some videos from different doctors that are sharing this material also in these specific times. And one of the most beautiful videos I have seen lately is from Dr. Thomas Cohen, which he explains a direct relationship that there is between electromagnetic fields and the effect they have on the body. It's a very simple way how to understand why the body creates these particles and excretes them outside. When a cell goes under a lot of stress or receives toxins inside, it needs to find a way to cleanse itself. And when it is under a very strong threat or a very strong aggression from the outside, it is connected to the environment, and it also needs to send signals to the neighboring cells. It's something very beautiful that I also heard Dr. Thomas Cohen sharing. It's an analogy is how the trees communicate under the earth. When there's a pest or there's a fire happening in the forest, the trees communicate through the roots. They send chemicals to the roots of other trees to tell them in advance what is coming, the pest or the fire or something else, another aggression, to find ways to protect themselves. It's a way that they communicate. And our cells do the same thing in many different ways. They do it with hormones, they do it with neurotransmitters, and these particles might be another way that they communicate between themselves. Now, one of these two possibilities is that these so-called viruses, these particles, are pieces of genetic materials and protein that the cell just releases, excretes. And the other one is that it releases this part of genetic material, which is information from the cell that goes to other cells and transmits this information to them in a way to warn them about what is happening and find different ways to survive this situation that the person is encountering. Now, which can be these external influences, external aggressions that can trigger these processes in the body? Some of them can be electromagnetic fields, which I'm going to share with you a little bit of the research that has been done lately, which is related to the coronavirus pandemic that is happening. Electromagnetic fields, vaccinations, heavy metals, intense stress or trauma, food toxicity, etc. All of these situations, it is proved today how they affect the cells of the body, how they trigger survival responses, and how these cells, one of these mechanisms to survive and to help other cells is by releasing these particles. One second, is people still arriving here? Okay. So these are two specific theories that have lots of proof behind it. And just to share with you a little bit about what is connected to this, I will give you an example of what connects to it, which is what Dr. Thomas Cohen shared. The different situations where some of the biggest pandemics have happened in the planet in the last century. And the connection to this is when there has been a strong shift in the electromagnetic field of the Earth. In 1917 is when radio waves were first introduced in the planet, and it was worldwide. And that's when the Spanish flu happened, right after the radio waves were introduced all around the planet. It's very interesting to know how this pandemic spread very fast around the world. They did not have the means of transport back then. We're talking about 100 years ago. It spread very fast, this pandemic, around the world, and most people know about the Spanish flu in Europe, in Africa, in North America, South America. And they didn't have the means of transport like we have today, airplanes, where a person can be in one day on the other side of the planet. But all simultaneously, this pandemic started all around the world. One of the explanations is that there was a shift in the electromagnetic field and the electronic influence on the human body in 1917 when radio waves were introduced. Another one was in World War II when radar was introduced all around the world, and there was another pandemic then. Another one was in 1968, the Hong Kong flu, and there was simultaneously another very big epidemic in Italy at the same time. That was when satellites were first launched and placed around the Van Allen belt around the planet, which altered all the electromagnetic influence from outside of the planet, but also inside the planet. And that triggered another big epidemic or pandemic in the planet. And another one, which is very curious, that very recently, around 6 months, in the last year basically, there has been a huge spread around the world of the introduction of 5G technology around the planet. Most of you know about it. We have gone from 2G, 3G, 4G, now we're in 5G. For those of you who have done research on the effects of 5G technology on the human body, it's quite strong. There have been many reactions around the planet to protest against this because the effect on health is very strong. And basically this technology, all the Wi-Fi technology, all the electromagnetic influence that all these appliances have on the human body are very drastic because it shifts the water content in our body. It destructures water in general, and it affects the DNA of our cells. So the connection between the effect of 5G on our cells is that this such strong influence of 5G has an impact on our DNA. It creates alterations on our DNA, and these are the parts of genetic material that our cells excrete from inside, which are called viruses. So this binds with the theory of excreting some toxic material, which coincides with the introduction of 5G technology in many places of the planet, which Wuhan in China was the first fully blanketed city with 5G technology. Italy and many other countries have a lot of introduction of 5G, and it's very interesting that most of the cases of coronavirus, basically the places that have most cases of coronavirus are big cities with this technology where it's introduced more. And one other detail is the famous cruise ship, that there was an epidemic of coronavirus in the cruise ship, was the first cruise ship that had completely installed 5G technology inside. So these are just some elements that might connect with this. I'm not saying 5G is the only cause for the coronavirus spread or for epidemics. But it's just an example of how electromagnetic fields and strong shifts in the electromagnetic field of the Earth have an impact on the health of human beings. And that's why there's a sudden change or a sudden manifestation of symptoms in the general population. There's other elements that bind to this, especially in Wuhan and also in the north of Italy, that I have started to do some research on, which added an extra element of very intense stress, previous stress to the breakout or the outbreak of the coronavirus. Wuhan, they were going to install a huge factory of burning of trash, a trash burning factory. And all the local people went to protest, and there was a huge reaction from the government, from the authorities, from police, and from the army, where there was a lot of aggression. They put tear gas on the people, and there was a huge thing which did not come out in the media. So it created, for the previous months, a very, very intense emotional, physical, and toxicological situation in that area, plus 5G. In Italy, in the north of Italy, where there's this huge outbreak of coronavirus, apart from 5G, is one of the most polluted areas. The population, as they have said, is of the highest age group in all Europe, but there has been a lot of different political situations there recently, and other news that I've checked, which I don't want to share all of this here because it's quite intense, but it has also created in the previous months a very intense, stressful, collective situation in those areas. It's very unfortunate that there's not so many people doing this research now, because if there's more scientists, more medical doctors that pay attention to these other factors, instead of just a virus that comes from outside that's going to hurt me and we're going to sell medications and vaccines, if there would be more availability to do research on these other matters, would be incredible what we would be finding today. So, are we okay? Yes. Am I going too fast? No? Okay, I see head like this. Is it understandable what I'm sharing? Yes? Okay, great. Fantastic. Lots of love to all of you. All right, can I continue? Yes, all right, here we go. So, I'm gonna go back here. Then I'm gonna share with you this. Just one extra detail is that 6 months ago, more or less, when all the 5G technology was introduced on the planet, there's already 20,000 radiation satellites around the planet that are emitting this 5G technology around the planet. So this has a huge impact in all of us. And that's why it's such a fast creation of symptoms, of the same kind of symptoms all around the planet. Okay, this is one of my favorites. I'm going to give you the third explanation. Before I give you the third explanation, I just want to clear out the first two. The first two is that one is the cells excrete these particles because it's something that is being very strong for the cells. They need to cleanse it, eliminate it in order for themselves to survive or for the whole organism to survive. The second one is the theory of exosomes. It's called like this, that the cell takes out these particles with genetic material, which gives information to other cells, and the proteins around the capsule of the virus bind to the membrane of other cells, so it can go inside the other cells, receive this information, and this way they communicate. This is a second theory, okay? I'm gonna go to the third theory, which is one of the, I'm going to call it theory for now, but it's something that is called the fourth biological law that Dr. Reichert Hammer discovered in 1980s. This has been discovered since 1980s. I'm going to just share a little bit of this from my experience. This is what I teach in my body medicine courses. I teach the 5 biological laws that Dr. Reichert Hammer discovered in the 1980s. Together with many other alternative perspectives to health, conventional medicine. I do not deny the benefits of conventional medicine and meditation. I bring them all together. I create a bridge between them. But these 5 biological laws was what Dr. Hammer discovered in the 1980s. And the fourth biological law explains the function of all microorganisms inside our human body. You must have heard already how the human body has all the microorganisms almost that any human body can get a so-called disease from, as I mentioned before. They are part of our body. They are part of our microbiome. We live in symbiosis with all these microorganisms. It is said that between 60 and 90% of the cells of our body are microorganisms, more than the cells that make bones, muscles, neurons, etc. So these organisms, this body that we live in, is made more of microorganisms than body cells. We are like walking microorganisms, walking zoo, we could say. But we live in symbiosis, okay? Now, Dr. Hammer explains what takes us out of this balance and what triggers an inflammatory process in the body that sometimes has microorganisms associated in these inflammatory processes. The first biological law explains what triggers this imbalance. The second biological law explains what are the shifts in the body, creating a sympathetic response, fight, flight, or freeze. And afterwards, when it's finished, it creates a parasympathetic shift in the body, which creates inflammation. The third biological law explains everything that creates tumors, but that's not the topic of today. And the fourth biological law explains what is the role of all these microorganisms in the body during inflammation. Fungus have a specific role, bacteria have a different role, which are, they get activated in different tissues and different organs of the body, and virus have a different role. The interesting aspect that Dr. Hammer discovered in the fourth biological law is that, I'm sorry, I just need to say there's a beautiful bird here that since I began this talk has been standing there, yellow bird, and he's just looking at what's happening here. So I just need to acknowledge it and feel very fortunate to have this other member of this talk here. Sorry, I had to say it. So the fourth biological law explains what's the role of these microorganisms. Viruses, they multiply, they are seen under these electronic microscopes only when there's inflammatory processes in the body. It's very difficult for doctors to find them in the body. They can, but it's much easier to find them when there's an inflammatory process in the body. Now, if you explore the first three biological laws, you will understand how inflammation is a process of repair of a tissue of the body. It's not necessarily a disease, but it's a repair process. Now, in this repairing process, these particles, these so-called particles, which I'm going to bring them into your screen again. These particles are made basically of protein, okay? All of this around here is protein. Inside is, sorry for my drawing, inside here, this is the genetic material, okay, which is information. Now, the theory that brings Dr. Hammer, which he calls them law, it's a law, means that there hasn't been any scientific study, anything that has been able to deny this fourth biological law. So far, I also haven't found it. He says that these particles, while the body is repairing tissues after going through a very intense sympathetic response, when the body is trying to repair a tissue, it needs material for rebuilding this tissue. The basic material to rebuild tissue in the body, especially in the tissues and organs of the body where viruses are present, is protein. Protein are like the building blocks of a wall of a house. They are the bricks, proteins. These viruses are made out of protein mostly, with a piece of genetic material. The genetic material is information. When there's inflammation, there's simultaneously activation of the immune system, different cells, leukocytes, lymphocytes, there's antibodies, there's many substances released that together, which is incredible, the wisdom of the body. It's incredible how the immune system works. Together with these particles and the cells of the tissue that is being repaired, reconstruct the tissue that was hurt or worn out during the previous very intense stressful situation. Situations, as I mentioned before, very strong influence from electromagnetic field, intoxication of the body, strong shocks or trauma, very intense stressful situations in people, which can go together with malnourishment, deficiencies in nutrition, etc. So what he's saying basically is that these particles that are released from inside of the cells of the body, which I'm going to show you this other image here, which is the theory of the exosomes. Right here, I'm going to again draw these right here. These little things could be the viruses, okay, the so-called viruses, which are exosomes also. This thing is an exosome, how it puts out a little particle with genetic material inside and the capsule around. So these little particles that go outside will be used by the immune system to rebuild tissue. Now, to some of you, this might sound a bit crazy, maybe. I want to see your opinion. If you say it's crazy, go like this. Okay, I have 1, 2 thumbs up. If you feel it's not crazy, that it makes sense, go like this. Okay, fantastic, much more. Great. All right. So this is a third perspective, which is based on the 5 biological laws that Dr. Hammer discovered. I have been working many years with this. I teach these courses, and I'm trying to explain to you a piece of science that has a lot of background. This has been studied for 35 years, more or less, it has been studied. I practice this in my medical practice every day. I see it with every patient I see. For me, it's not a question, and it's not so much about the theory, because for more than 15 years, I work with patients every day, sometimes 10, 12 patients a day. Many of them come with so-called infectious diseases, sneezing, coughing, vomiting, etc. I'm exposed to all these microorganisms or viruses. And guess how many times I have gotten the disease, meaning a contagious disease, from any of my patients? Yes, 0. 0. In all these years, it hasn't been a single time, and I've seen any infectious disease you can imagine. So for me, it's not just a theoretical situation that I'm sharing with you right now. For me, it's my experience, so I feel very comfortable sharing this. I have, for many years, I have done research in non-conventional, not mainstream research. And I'm going to share with you also, all of you who are here, I'm going to share with you a bibliography. I'm going to share you some books if you're interested in reading them, and material. So you can also read how all of this material is sustained by medical research, by microbiologists, virologists, which is very interesting that nowadays many of them are not, their voices, even though they're still speaking, they're still doing discoveries, they are not heard by the World Health Organization. Anyways, I'm not going to go into other aspects that are behind all of this, what is happening today. But my intention is just to share with you today a different perspective of what viruses are. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up this chat box here. And I'm going to go all the way down. Oh, I see. Makes sense. Makes sense. Not crazy at all. Great. Okay, so I'm going to open a little bit for questions about these other perspectives I just shared with you. So if you have questions, a specific question about what I just shared with you, you can type it here. I'm going to try to answer it. Okay. I know the big pharma will not be happy of what I'm sharing. I know that. It's okay. But because of what we're living today, because there's so much panic, people are so bombarded by mainstream information that has only one intention, which is create fear, take very drastic measures in our lives, which I can share with you a little bit of information of what is, sorry, a second, I'll share a little bit with you here, of what might compare to this situation with other situations that happen every year. An average of 400,000 people die every year of common flu. Just 33,000 in the USA last year. Deaths by common flu. There's 230 to 250 million people sick every year from malaria, and 1,250 to 1,500 die every day from malaria. And yet the world is not responding to those situations how it's responding today to the so-called coronavirus situations. So yeah, I have so much data here, but I can spend just hours sharing with you. I can send it to you later. But the essence of this, come back here. The essence of this is that I'm just sharing this with you so you broaden your perspective, your criteria, because I feel what is creating so much panic in people, and it puts them in a situation that they will follow whatever the mainstream media says, is because they have only one conception of what viruses are, which creates fear. They don't know what to do about it. Therefore, they follow whatever they hear in the media. So I'm going to read many questions here. Why some people have symptoms and why others not. I kind of shared it, and this is something that might be important for many people to start opening your perspective a little bit. Most people, when they get this viral infections, coronavirus or not coronavirus, is right after a very, very intense, stressful situation in an emotional, psychological, and physical level in the body. After that finishes is when the symptomatology comes up. But this is more detailed in my course. At the end of this talk, I'm going to give you access to the course with some discounts and everything, because this is something I feel people need to really understand. How come health systems are overwhelmed and people are dying? Who says this is new? The thing is, there's a huge output in the media today of this, what is happening, which is real. The health systems are overwhelmed and people are dying. But it doesn't mean it's something different from what happens every year, especially in this season of the year, related to the same kind of symptomatology. Okay, this is a good question, very good question. If the cells of the body are cleansing, why are so many people dying? Because there are many other elements and factors that are related to what symptoms a person is going to have, how intense the symptoms will be, and for how long they will last. There are two elements here. When the body of a person is not well nourished, the person does not have a proper healthy diet, is not well hydrated, does not live in a natural environment that supports health, well-being, and homeostasis in their body. They have a lot of stress in their life, they have a lot of influence of electromagnetic fields, etc., etc. When this inflammatory process starts in the body, many times the body cannot deal with it. It becomes too much, so the symptoms become very intense. They need medical support. I'm not saying people do not need medical support. This is important. Okay? I'm not saying people don't need medical support. People do need medical support when the symptoms are too strong. This is important to clear out. But also, even what doctors are saying today is when symptoms are mild, stay home, take care of yourself, eat healthy, rest, because the body can deal with it. Now, there's one more element here that is worth mentioning, and it's one of my purposes of sharing this today, which is what I feel, might be true, might not. What I feel many people that have been diagnosed with coronavirus or that think that have coronavirus are experimenting right now, which is when they get symptoms, which most of them are not lethal, they're gonna get symptoms of a cough, fever, headache, etc. What they experience because of what they're receiving from the media is they are experiencing a huge fearful reaction, a fearful response. They activate a new shock in the body by the perception and the interpretation that they have this very dangerous, lethal virus. So this adds an incredible amount of stress biochemically in the body that does not help at all with the symptoms they have. And this is what is contributed to this chaos that is happening right now. That's why I'm sharing this also. So you get a different perspective. You're not just with an idea that is based on fear of these microorganisms that are there to kill me. So even if you have symptoms, I have had a few symptoms a week ago, and I know many people that right now, people that I know that have symptoms that are very similar to the coronavirus. So it's very easy that the mind hooks on the interpretation that, oh, I might have coronavirus, and immediately triggers a very strong fearful reaction that depletes the whole system, not just the immune system, depletes the whole system. So that triggers another chain reaction. Now it's a mess already. How can we do something to get out of it? Very nice. Thank you for this question. Let me just read a couple more questions, and then I'm going to give you, because this is the next part I was going to go to in the presentation, which I think I'm going to share that before, because I think this is important for everybody, and it might clear out various of the questions. Sorry, I need to put this like that. All right. So, what to do? Now you have these perspectives, okay? What to do once you know this? Even if it makes sense to you or it doesn't make sense to you, either you want to believe these other perspectives or not, or you want to do your own research, which I definitely encourage you to keep doing research. You can look at all the mainstream that you want, but also do some search for different sources of information. Get your own criteria, do your own investigation. This is super important. So what you can do right now, number one, be well hydrated. Drink at least 1 liter of water every 23 kilos of your body weight, or 50 pounds of your body weight. Try to get the best quality water that you can. Not very processed, not tap water, which is full of chemicals and other stuff. Get water that is mineralized, oxygenated, structured water, exposed to the sun, the best quality water that you can, because the more you hydrate your body, you hydrate your cells, you support your system to cleanse itself and deal with whatever toxins are coming into your body. Eat as much fresh produce as you can, meaning fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, sprouts, etc., because they're full of nutrients. If you can get organic, fantastic. Reduce as much as you can the processed industrialized foods that are full of chemicals that the cells of your body will have to deal with this, cleanse themselves, so it doesn't support your body with the topic that we're talking about today. Reduce the quantity of animal products that you eat, exercise daily, sweat, because this moves the lymphatic system, the circulatory system. It helps your body to cleanse all these toxins out of your body. It brings more oxygen and nutrients to your body. Try to stay away or stay far from sources of radiation that can be affecting your daily life. Get far away from your modem, switch it off at night. If you are close to the antennas of 5G, complain to the municipality, or if you can move to a different place, if you can live in nature, is much better. Switch off your phone, put it far away from you at night. And one of the best things you can do to neutralize the effect of all this electromagnetic chaos that is around us is something called earthing. Earthing is making direct contact with the earth or with plants or trees, with your body. Stepping with your feet on the earth, on the grass. This shifts completely your electromagnetic field, connects you to the electromagnetic field of the planet, which is much stronger than 5G or 6G or whatever. So it protects you, it cleanses you, it has an immediate um, ion exchange with your body that neutralizes the negative effects of electromagnetic fields on your body. So this is something that you can do. I know many of you are isolated in your apartments, so if you have still a chance, depending which country you are right now, go out even to the park close by, hug a tree, touch a tree for 5, 10, 15 minutes, be barefoot on the earth, on the grass, on the sand. This is incredibly supportive for your body regarding this matter. Receive direct sunlight. Vitamin D is essential right now. There are many other studies that are being done right now in correlation to coronavirus that they have seen that many of the people who are testing positive are deficient in vitamin D. So if you have sun exposure, fantastic, 50 minutes a day is enough. If not, take a vitamin D3 supplement. Get good quality sleep. Your body needs to rest because during rest is when your body does all the repairing, healing processes of the body. If you're not sleeping well, if you're too stressed, you don't give enough time to your body to do all these repair processes. So you need to give the space to your body to do that. Be in contact with nature. There's something I also wanted to mention today in this talk is that I am so happy. There's something of this whole situation that is making me very happy, which is to see what is happening in the planet with the isolation that we are having, human beings. I feel the planet, trees, plants, animals are so happy right now. There's no pollution, there's not much noise. The temperature on the planet in 1 month decreased 1.5 degrees Celsius. The ozone layer hole decreased, almost disappeared. It's amazing what's happening in the planet. There's so much to learn from this. So I feel this is a wake-up call for all of us to come back to nature, to respect nature, to come back to our nature. It doesn't need such evolved lessons or science of what you need to do to come back to your nature. You need to start meditating and connect to your body. Your body will guide you. Start eating natural, start hydrating yourself, start being in nature, and your body will tell you what it needs. Most of you know this already, but the majority of the population today, I would say more than 95% of the population today, might hear about this, but they don't apply it in their daily life. They don't eat healthy food. They are living extremely stressful lives. They don't meditate. They are fully immersed in social media, etc., etc. So they end up somatizing all of this in their body. So this is a fantastic wake-up call for everybody, for all of us, including myself. There's so much to learn from this. We need to, in a way, use this as a lesson to also save our planet. We are in this point of existence that we also need to wake up, start shifting our lifestyle, start having a more self-sustainable life in an individual level and in a collective level. I don't know, this is my personal sharing and a view of it, but you might have your own, and you might have your own lessons from this. I'm just sharing what I can share today. And there's something very beautiful that I also heard from Thomas Crow the other day, which in the situation that we're living right now with this global situation, there's very, very drastic measures being taken right now in the world. Some of them I agree, most of them I don't agree, but this is my personal thing. But many people are having a very difficult time with this, especially people who have a very low economical situation, low economical income, especially people who have lost their jobs because of these measures. So I feel it's also a time where we need to help each other. So if you have a chance to help in any way these people who are in need, this is a great opportunity, and this brings us closer together. Even if we are isolated, wherever you live, you can find different ways to help other people. So this is also a great opportunity now to come together in a different way. I'm getting many questions that you're asking why there's these reactions from the governments and from the health system. This, for the people who are asking it, I will try to share other sources because this video I want to keep it for this. There are many other explanations. Some of them are quite shocking, but anyways, this is not the topic of the call. Yes, somebody just said, thank you, Tatiana. Watering plants and having a garden, a veggie garden, this is something that is so nourishing also. That can get you in contact with the earth, that can give you a source of food eventually. This is one of the things that I would definitely recommend to anybody. Either you live in a city or you live in nature. Many questions here. Okay, this is a fantastic question. Thank you, Molly from New York. If you are in your apartment and there are certain measures that have been taken by the authorities that you cannot leave your apartment, and you don't have direct contact with trees, earth, etc., this is not the only thing I'm giving of options how you can support your body, your mind, your emotions. But one thing you can do is you can take some time, which is something I do sometimes, take some time to look outside the window and look for a tree, look for a few trees, look for a plant, look for a flower, and take 10 minutes just looking at this living being there. See how it moves, see how bees or birds step on it, or see whatever you see in it. It will do something to your body, even though you cannot touch it physically. Do it as a meditation. Connect with this tree, with this plant, with this flower. This is something you can do if you don't have the chance to go outside. Okay, I know that some of you need to go somewhere else. I'm going to put the image of everybody here again. I just want to see you all. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for staying in this talk for an hour. Wow, so beautiful to see you all. I don't know, it touches my heart, and I feel this is also a time to really connect to the heart a little bit. I share with you a lot of information. Yes, it comes through the mind. It's helpful because it helps us to break a little bit beliefs we have and have a bigger criteria. But I feel what strengthens us the most nowadays is really finding ways to connect with the heart. Because no matter what is out there, no matter what you see in the media, when you connect to the heart transforms everything. I know many of you, I know we share meditations together. I know we've done Tisha's heart meditation. I know we've done so many meditations that connect us to the heart. The heart melts everything. So maybe we can do this for the last minutes of this meeting, if you feel like. Fantastic. So maybe we can take 5 minutes for just dropping a little bit into this area, the center of your chest, the space of the heart, and just feel your chest. Feel your breath there. Even allow yourself to feel as if the breath, as if your heart is breathing. As if the air comes into your heart and comes out of your heart. And it might help you to put 1 or 2 hands there. If it helps you, you can do so. You start with yourself, just noticing what happens when you bring your attention to your heart. What happens to your breathing? What happens to your shoulders, to your arms? What you notice in the body as you're in the space of the heart. And then, as you are there feeling your heart, I'm going to ask you to, in a way, include all of us, these 200 people who are doing this at this moment, in your heart. Imagine we are connected through our hearts. Notice what you feel. Allowing whatever is there to be there. Just being present to your heart. Nothing to do. And then you can take a few deep breaths. And if you feel like you can stretch your body a little bit. And when you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes. I want to try something. I don't know. I'm a beginner in this Zoom thing, so I want to see how I can take away the mute thing, so we can hear everybody. I don't know if I can do it. Here. Here it is. Okay. So, you want to say hello?
Thank you so much.
Lots of love to everybody. Very nice. It's been a long time. Okay.
Gracias.
Okay. I took it off just to finish with this, but that was beautiful. Thank you everybody for being here, for sharing this together. I send you my love. I hope to meet you very soon, like this or in person. I send you a big hug. I love you, and we stay connected. Thank you for being together today in this.